is now alongside me once again. Europe versus USA, Phil.
Always spicy. Lots of speculation circling around the building as to how many wins you will need out of your 15 matches to make the top 10 who go through to the next phase. I reckon if you win 6, you're definitely there. Maybe even 5 would be good enough. Anything under that, and, well, you're in a little bit of trouble. And talking of which, the cue ball enters the pocket, and that's the worst possible start.
Start the clock, please.
Yeah, it's like a reverse auction, really, isn't it? How low can you go in terms of the number of wins you need? Alex Kazakis was talking earlier. He reckons 4 might be enough. But I agree with what you're saying. I think if you got 6, you'd be very unlucky not to be among the 10 players who went through to the next phase.
Yes, I think 4 could definitely do it, but then you'd be at the mercy of other results, and you don't want to be relying on other outcomes.
And the wins carry forward to the next phase as well, so if you did go through with 4, you probably need a really exceptional second phase to make it through to the final day. Anyway, these are all the conundrums we'll be discussing in the coming days. And when you have a new format, there are always aspects of it that surprise you, things you didn't really think of. So I'm sure that will come into play over the few days too. And what gets very interesting is where you have matches where there are differences of incentive. You might, towards the end, of a player who desperately needs a win against someone who's going out of the tournament, and then it becomes interesting to see how that affects the psychology. So all that to come. In the present day, these guys are both just looking for their first win.
The problem here for Woodward, the close proximity of the 5 and the 6. Well, in terms of putting it close to this top cushion, it's a good white. But the 5 is in the open.
Attention, please.
Nowhere near.
The only time Woodward has been ahead in either of his matches so far was when he won the opening rack against Shane Van Boening. He only won one more after that. Van Boening finished the match very strongly. Golden break, actually, to clinch the win. And he was behind for most of that one. And it was a similar story. He just couldn't get in front against Alex Kazakis. Ended up losing that one 5-3.
That said, good pots on both 5 and 6 here. They're a little further advanced in the penultimate match of the day on table 2, where Albin Ouschan just a few seconds ago took a 3-2 lead over Oliver Szolnocki.
Always a tonic to win the opening rack, even more so when it's on your opponent's break. And that is what Skyler Woodward has swiftly done. He leads Mieszko Fortunski 1-0. Now we're going to have a look at that match you were just talking about over on the other table. Albin Ouschan 3-2 up against Oliver Szolnocki, and he's got the break now in the next rack. And we arrive just in time to see how it goes for him.
Well, the last ball running really helped there. Lots of potentials to go down. In the end, though, it was the brown 7.
Won both his matches so far today. I think he'll have learned a lot from his experience in a similar format in the Championship League here last year, which he won. When things weren't going his way early on in the tournament, he got very frustrated with himself. Now he'll know in this format you're going to be playing a number of matches every day for 8 days if you're going to win it. So you've got to keep your head throughout and be patient.
Current score is 1-0.
He'll be looking to apply those lessons this week.
Mr. Woodward.
So back here, Woodward with the break and leading 1-0.
In goes the ball. The 2 is on. The 3 in the open. Happy days. Just had a chat with Skyler Woodward at the practice table. He was remarking about those wonderful scenes at the Phoenix Open Golf when Sam Ryder had his hole-in-one on Saturday and all of those beer cans were swiftly emptied. It really was a remarkable scene.
Yeah, not so good, though, for Carlos Ortiz when he got his hole-in-one, and I think he got slightly injured by one of the beer cans being thrown at him. It's an extraordinary thing, that Phoenix Open Golf.
Really does love his sports, Skyler Woodward. They call him the Kentucky Kid as he plays that really good positional shot, avoiding all of the congestion. He's originally born in Paducah, Kentucky, now living in Texas. But he's a kid no more. When we're at Gibraltar for the Whirlpool Masters in early May, Woodward will celebrate his 29th birthday.
Yeah, he's become a very consistent performer in recent years. Had a couple of great Moscone Cups, was perhaps the biggest single reason why the US got those unexpected back-to-back wins, I think, in 2018 and 19. Hasn't won one of the real standout titles in the game yet, but you feel he's knocking on the door a bit. Quarter-finals of the World Championship last year. Knocked out the defending champion, Fedor Gorst. Ended up losing to Albin Ouschan, the eventual champion, in the last 8. So he's in that bracket now of players who you feel that's the next logical step for them in the game. To win one of the real standout events like the World Championship, US Open. Maybe one or two others you'd now put in that category as well. Perhaps the new UK and European Opens. They'll certainly come with a great deal of prestige. And Woodward is going along very nicely here. He leads Mieszko Fortunski by 2-0. As we check in once again on developments on the other table, Albin Ouschan, who I mentioned there, 3-2 up against Oliver Szolnocki. And in play, looking to get himself to the hill. Ouschan at the forefront of the new breed, really, Phil. I remember when we arrived here last year for the Championship League, the first thing I saw when I got to the hotel was him running laps around the outside of it. He and his sister Yasmin, a very accomplished player, both very into the importance of fitness. Not something that pool players of the past would have thought a great deal about, but it seems to be part of the modern professional's makeup.
Yes, Jasmine's done really well, hasn't she, on the Austrian version of... Well, in America they call it Dancing with the Stars. In the UK we call it Strictly Come Dancing.
Yeah, I think she finished second.
Albin Ouschan.
And Albin Ouschan continuing what's been a very good first day for him so far. He leads 4-2.
Rack number 3. Our current score is 2-0 in favor of Mr. Woodward. Mr. Fortunski to break.
So much to love about this format. It is so fast and furious. Action going on all day, all the time.
But not the action Fortunski was hoping to see there. The break has not been a happy experience for him so far in this match. Scratched in the first rack and dry in the third.
You were saying, Michael, quite correctly, a major title yet to fall his way, although he did win the Master of the Table and the 9-ball division at the Derby City Classic in 2019.
Extension, please.
And he's a former US Open 8-ball champion.
Yeah, they were both in the same year, and I think that was probably his best year so far. Topped $100,000 for the first time. Won 5 different tournaments. Got to the semi-finals of the World Masters that year as well. And became back-to-back MVP in the Mosconi Cup. Wouldn't be hard to surmise that perhaps, having had such a good 2019, he was one of those players whose forward momentum was all lost because of the shutdown, really, for most of the following year. As we were saying earlier, he recovered it when things got up and running again properly in 2021. And he's starting to dominate this match now.
Yes, this is looking really grim for Fortunski, especially bearing in mind that if he does go 3-0 down, he faces the prospect of Woodward breaking off in rack 4.
Yeah, it was a dry break from Fortunski. He's paid a heavy price for it. Skyler Woodward racing away with this one. He leads 3 racks to 0. It's all going the way of Skyler Woodward here on table 1. And before we focus on this once more, just to update you on developments on the other table, Albin Ouschan is just about to line up the 9-ball to complete a 5-2 win over Oliver Szolnocki, and that will make it 3 wins out of 3 for the world champion. Very good first day for him. But back here, it's another dry break.
Yes, 1 is a rarity, 2 in succession. That's a shock to the system.
Ouschan has now completed that match on the other table. So just 1 more to go now on table 2. Aloysius Yap against Max Lechner, who's had just a really terrible day. He's played 4 matches and lost them all.
Now then, it's not a particularly appetizing prospect. What about the 2-9 combo? Distance between the 2 balls.
Oh, that's the way to get back into the match. And very swiftly, Fortunski reduces that deficit to 3-1.
I'm not saying that was a high tariff shot, Michael. What I'm saying is it was one that could have gone astray, and in the end he made it look easy.
Yep, sums it up just about perfectly. And as you said, there was a bit of distance between the balls, so it was a tougher shot than it might perhaps have looked. And again, we just see these momentum swings so quickly. Now, 3-1 down, and he's got the break in the next rack. Although, as I was saying, the break hasn't been particularly kind to him so far in this match.
We talk about formats. Definitely, this is a sprint, no doubt. It should be a great leveler, but look at the cream rising to the top today. Albin Ouschan, Joshua Filler, Jason Shaw. The usual suspects.
Well, the thing is, no matter what the length of a match, you've still got to get the job done, get over the line, and experience counts for a lot when you're in that situation. And also, look, you might have a bit of good fortune to win a match or 2 or maybe even 3 in race to 5, but when you're playing 15 matches each over a few days, that's all going to even itself out, and you're going to have to prove yourself. But what's with all these dry breaks, Phil?
It's a desert, so dry. Ooh, he was looking at that intently. Wasn't sure whether even at that relatively quiet pace, the 1 would drop.
Again, the alternate break just facilitates these swings in psychological momentum as much as anything else. Now, all of a sudden, it's Woodward looking to go 4-1. And then he'd be breaking on the hill. So much of the faith in the future of American pool has been invested in Woodward. We've talked about how Shane Van Boening, even after all this time, is still clearly the best American player. He's going to be around for some time yet, make no mistake about that. But people are looking for the next generation to come through. And there's a real lack of it, but Woodward is perhaps the most prominent of them. He's a decade or so younger than Van Boning, and already quite experienced. So if there is to be a sustained American presence at the top of the game, a lot of that is going to depend on Woodward.
Wanted to just be slightly straighter on that 8 ball, but able to kill the pace of the side cushion of the cue ball, and now this 9 should be a formality.
Yeah, and with that, firm control is restored for Woodward. 4-1 in front. He'll be breaking next.
The Table 2 nightcap is just about to begin. Max Lechner, as you said, Michael, already in trouble. You can't book your place in the second phase today, but you can certainly put yourself in a real hole. If Lechner could get a win here, some of the wounds would be soothed.
Yeah, he wouldn't be out of it, whatever happens, but you consider the sort of equation he'd be facing then and the number of matches he'd then have to win out of the 10 he'll have left. That'd be hard enough to do for a form player, but when you've been struggling anyway, to try and win that many matches, well, it's going to be a tall order. But just getting that one win on the board, as long as you've got that to show for your first day, you've got something to build on. Yep, still looking for his first win, but he's only played twice so far.
As always, rest assured, we'll keep you right up to date with what happens on Table 2. Now it's a matter of whether Skyler Woodward can break and run out and complete victory.
Well, that'll be a nice start in that direction. But what's he got here on the 3? 1 and 2 both down.
10 seconds.
Yes, in an ideal world, he would have been better off had the 2 caught the bumps of the middle pocket and stayed over that pocket, readily available.
Yeah, and seeing it again from the overhead angle, I'm not sure this 3 is potable. Oh, it is if you do it that way. And that shot just exuded confidence. Maybe that break and run you spoke of could be on. Oh, well. Can you believe it? Considering the previous shot, to then follow it with that, Phil, is absolutely incredible.
Well, the only reason he missed that was because he needed to put on maximum side to get position on the 5. 4.5-inch pockets, it's down.
Yeah, and we've seen it again so many times today when you're playing them into these pockets with a bit of pace. They're always missable. If you asked Fortunski about 60 seconds ago whether he was going to get another shot in this match, I think on balance he'd probably have thought not. But here he is now, looking like getting back to 4-2. Or not. And maybe that's going to be his last shot.
What a strange one that was. But I tell you what, Skyler Woodward is not complaining.
Don't like saying it, but that really is one of the worst shots we've seen all day. And it's going to be Fortunski's last. Here it is again. He won't want to see this. Well, what a letdown. He'd been given a chance to get back into the match, but he has spurned it. And Skyler Woodward, with what has overall been a fairly competent performance, has beaten Mieszko Fortunski by 5.